show. Thank you so much once again for joining us. Or maybe you are a new viewer. If you are, then please let other people know. Give us a like on Facebook, give us a share. Let people know that we are out there, because we are bringing you the best guests, the best news, and the best comedy from around the world, because today is our globetrotting edition. Yeah, we thought it would be good to bring you some of the acts who normally travel the globe but are now locked at home. And that's normally as part of the free festival. Yes, the show is free to watch. It's not free to make. So please do donate. We can only keep going if you do donate. So please do be generous. But it is not my show, it is our show. Without further ado, let's welcome one of our top presenters. It's an absolute pleasure. Friend of the show, co-presenter, it's the wonderful Mr. J. Sodagar. There he is.
Oh, bless you. Bless you. Look at my head. Wow, I've got a big head, haven't I? Look at you. Bless you. How are you? How are you, Dave?
Very good, Tommy. I'd say like I'm an 8 out of 10. I think the vaccine has made me perks me up a little bit. Have you been heartened by that?
No, I'm not one of these anti-vaxxers or anything like that. But I think the whole thing about the vaccine is like, is it going to work? Are we all going to be turned into mutants? Is that what's going to happen? Because I just watched I Am Legend, and it's like, maybe, I don't know.
This is my problem, that people sort of talk about the side effects and stuff. Maybe you could get like a mutant arm or the power of flight. You know, I think you could get telekinesis. I think that'd be brilliant.
I would be honest with you. If I did have a bionic arm, I would abuse it. In the without saying anything, I would abuse it. You know, like, oh God, how fast can I do this? Like the $6 million man, I would do this. It's like, wow. Oh, bless you. But for me, the big thing this week is Brexit. It's almost done. It's almost done. We've been 4 years in the making of this shit show, as it were. But the one thing is Brexit. Like they're trying to get this deal through. It's basically this divorce bill we're actually trying to go through. And to me, Britain as a whole, throughout the entire period of this Brexit process, has literally been like a menopausal woman. It's like, I don't need no Europe to deal with this, right? I'm an independent country, all right? And then the next second, but I love Europe. I love them so much. I want to be with them. And this divorce deal that they're kind of going through, yeah, like they're trying to sort of like negotiate a deal to either completely break with them, and then so Britain can go and see other countries like America or something like that. Now, the relationship with America, I've always tended to look at it as like some abusive boyfriend. You know, it's like that country that kind of wants to commit, but just leaves every so often. Do you know what I mean? Comes around, gives it a bit of a fingering, and then leaves, as it were. That's what I tend to find America's relationship with. And we've got Boris as Prime Minister, and he says all these things. Now, one thing, if you're going to leave Europe, you can't really be racist, all right? If you're trying to get trade deals with India, China, and Africa, all right? You can't start calling them towel heads, for crying out loud, or letterboxes, all right? Because Britain ain't got much in the fridge. We're going to need this, all right? But it's scary. It's scary, the whole Brexit trade negotiation. Apparently, they're meeting yesterday for dinner. This is how trade deals are done, over dinner, over mashed potatoes and sausages. That's how it's done. But it beggars belief to me. It really does beg belief to me.
It really does. Yeah. It really does. And it beggars belief to chuck in there. If you are offended, please let us know. Get in the comments and repeat them. Let us know what you were most offended by. And speaking of the least offensive thing in the world that I could think of, it is now my absolute pleasure to introduce our other co-presenter, the wonderful Vladimir McTavish.
Good evening, folks. How are we? Very nice to be talking about globetrotting comedians when I'm in my attic in Edinburgh. where I've been since March. I'm looking forward to 2022. They potentially get the vaccine. I'm near the top of the queue. Yes, because I am Scottish and I'm one of the oldest people in my country. So I'm well in there. I'm looking forward to 2022. Particularly since we had the draw for the World Cup. 2022 World Cup. I can now look forward to that, and Scotland are definitely going to qualify. You heard it here first. No, I have no doubt Scotland are going to qualify, because unless you've not noticed, the 2022 World Cup is in Qatar, which is a baking hot desert where it's bloody difficult to get a drink. So we are bolted on certainties to get to that one. Saying that, at the moment, Scotland is a cold, wet shithole where everything's shut, and it's bloody difficult to get a drink. So we might as well be in Qatar, to be honest. I've done a few gigs out that part of the world talking about travel. I was out in Kuwait a few years back, and there's not a lot of fun to be had in Kuwait. You can't drink, you can't gamble. Didn't bother me because I'm a veggie, but you actually can't even eat pork. And we were doing the shows for British expats, and before we left home, they actually emailed us and asked us all the guys who were doing the gigs, if we could smuggle pork pies out of the country. Yeah, you guys can laugh. You've quite clearly never tried getting 6 pork pies and a condom up your arse, right? There we go. Yes. We're off and running. Meanwhile, back here in the UK, the coronavirus vaccine was rolled out this week, and the first recipient was 90-year-old Margaret Kieran from Coventry. First person to get the vaccine. Closely followed by William Shakespeare. Didn't know he was still alive, but apparently is. Well into his 90s. It's great. It's great to see these old people getting the vaccine. The one thing about this is it means that the medical profession can't be absolutely certain whether memory loss, incontinence, or death are going to be side effects of the vaccine.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and until we try it in me. And then across the Atlantic, President-elect Joe Biden has also been taking part in clinical trials for a new vaccine that they've been developing over a number of years, and it appears to have been a complete success. Joe Biden has been taking part in these trials for a vaccine that is thought to cure baldness. And if you think that is a far-fetched claim, look at this picture of Joe Biden a few years ago. Yeah, that was before he took the vaccine. And look at him now in 2020. You'll soon see how much this vaccine has affected Joe Biden's 2020 look. Well, we should do. There we are!
Yay!
Too long to get there. Yes, Joe Biden, 2020. Full head of hair. Yes,
Wow.
Twist. In much same way, Wayne Rooney had that, didn't he? He had the hair transplant, and he spent 30 grand on it. Yeah, ridiculous amount. £30,000 Wayne Rooney spent on his hair transplant, which is particularly laughable, given that baldness wasn't his most obvious handicap at the time. Anyway, we have the vaccine, and Health Secretary Matt Hancock has said that he'll take the vaccine live on TV if it might save a life. I think what he meant to say was he'd take the vaccine live on TV if it might save his job. I actually think this sets up a really interesting precedent. Because if he did take the vaccine live on TV, why can't other government ministers take other medical procedures live on TV? Like Michael Gove getting a prostate exam live on TV. Father of God knows how many, Jacob Rees-Mogg, getting a vasectomy live on TV. Although apparently Jacob Rees-Mogg thinks vasectomy is the name of one of his children. And thirdly, Priti Patel getting anything painful and very humiliating live on TV. For once, however, Boris Johnson has actually shown an example. He's taken the lead in this, And he very publicly had his temperature taken in front of the public and was photographed doing it. And you can see the results of that. Yes, the camera never lies, folks.
See, it's a really good point because we're talking so much about temperatures at the moment, like the temperature of the vaccine and blah, blah, blah. You've got to keep it cold. My point is, if people are skeptical about taking the vaccine, it needs to be kept cold. Put it in a cornetto. People will happily just lick that. Lovely stuff, sorted. Well, I've got some news from a little bit further afield. Here in the UK, a pub in Nottingham is posing as a church to get around local Tier 3 restrictions. It's been recently renamed and has filed an application to certify it as a place for religious worship. I think this is incredible. Would you guys ever do that? Could you, have you ever done that, anything like that, to try and get around the things, Jay?
Well, to be fair, I've done a lot of worshipping at pubs, but God was never involved. Please let the toilets be open. Please let them be clean. Please, I'll do anything.
I thought you were going down a different route, and you were going to say I've done a lot of worshipping to spearmint rhinos, and I was going to say your wife is not going to be happy about that, mate. That does not count as prayer. I know your hands were close together, but that's not prayer.
But
that's on the Friday show, not on the Thursday show. The Thursday show is family friendly. Friday show.
But surely, if they're going to serve alcohol in this church, they presumably need to have a substantial meal to go with it if they're in Tier 3.
Communion wafers.
No, that's not a substantial meal. Communion wafers and chips.
Yeah.
Substantial meal.
This is a genuinely true thing. My mum is Catholic. This is honestly true. My mum is Catholic, so if you're Catholic, you must believe that the wafer is the blood of Christ. She has to order gluten-free body of Christ. That's a genuine thing. An honest thing. I just think that's great. Looking at that, this is the globetrotting show. Poland actually has had a very similar case of this. Poland's Atlantic Squash and Fitness Club has had to rebrand itself as a church and health body check, as a sort of gimmick, basically, to get around the rules. So that's not the first place that has done this. And finally, from me, looking a little bit even further afield, I just love this story. A gymnast in North Korea has escaped to the south of North of North Korea. What? East to go west. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, and the payoff's not even worth it. But a gymnast in North Korea has escaped to the south by vaulting over the border. And they went over the barricades, really triggering the sense of, apparently the border is 2.5 miles long, 160 miles wide, and it has got mines all the way along it. So they couldn't believe that he got away with this. Genuinely, this is true. When they caught him, they were so amazed. They asked him to demonstrate it again, knowing that there's a landmine field just that size.
I can see Mexicans doing this in America right now. They're like, oh, we can vault over it. It's fine. It's okay.
Brilliant stuff. Well, guys, we are going to be having more from me, Joe, and Vlad later on. But I am absolutely so keen to get this show underway. We have got some of the best guests for you. And I think without any further ado, we're going to welcome our first guest, who has been described by the Scotsman as a captivating storyteller and irresistible performer. But don't take my word for it. Let's have a quick look at her in action.
But I had a brilliant gynecologist. Brilliant. He's actually a Muslim gynecologist. And because I respect people's religions, when I used to go for my appointments with him, I used to veil my face. And there was a point during the birth, right, when he had his head up my fanny, and my veil slipped, and he was so embarrassed. Any camping fans in? Yay, brilliant, the great outdoors, but you must be careful, because if you go camping in your tent, you mustn't smoke dope. It's a very bad thing to do, because if you're like me, what could happen is you get very stoned, and then at the end, when it's the evening, before you go to bed, you put your little bit of dope in a little canvas envelope thing, you know, that's sewn inside your tent. And you're really, really stoned, then you forget all about it. And at the end of your holiday, you pack up your tent, and then you lend it to your little sister. And she goes trekking to Malaysia and gets executed.
Please welcome Charmian Hughes.
Ooh, hi.
Hi, Charmian, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
I must admit, I am loving your living room.
I know. I can't resist the influence of the old lady who lived here from 1939 till when we bought the house. Yeah, and we've got to go. Oh, let's knock all this down. Let's paint it. And no, within minutes, I was loving all the tiny little cubby holes and our funny Gothic cupboards. And yeah.
God. And you've still got the air raid shelter.
Yeah. They used to be very dangerous when we were children. You're always reading in the papers about kids falling down the Anderson shelters and then buried alive.
Right, yeah, I know. That's the thing, when you get to our age, you realise that, I mean, because you and I, we're a similar age, we're not going to that right now, but we might later on, is that, yeah, when we grew up, it wasn't that long after the end of the war, was it, really?
No. And I only realised that now. At the time, I thought it was like centuries before. But I mean, I'm 64. I was born 11 years after the end of the war, and I was born in Germany because my dad. Yeah, because my dad was part of the occupying British force, and my mother was buying coffee on the black market and smuggling cigarettes under my pram.
Oh, fuck!
I know. Oh.
Yeah, my brother, I'm the same age as you. I was born in 56.
Looking good.
No, hang on, so are you. My brother, who was 2 years older than me, he had a ration book.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. And he's kept it because he's going to need it in January. That is the thing, isn't it? I think
that experience has probably made us quite match fit for this whole experience of lockdown, because we've kind of psychologically been through it before.
I very much was psychologically through lockdown, growing up in Scotland in the 1960s and 70s. Basically, Sunday was like that strict lockdown we had in March.
Oh.
That was like 3 months of Scottish Sundays from the 1970s.
My mother wouldn't let me go to the cinema on Sundays. She wasn't in any way religious, except at Christmas. And she just went, you can't. It's morally bad to go to the cinema on a Sunday. So that's when my friends and their families would say, do you want to go to the cinema? And it was like, no.
Right. And then you soon found out who your real friends were.
Yeah.
Rephrasing that as, do you fancy coming to the cinema on Sunday, Charmian? Yeah, so you should have been in various parts of the world this year, shouldn't you?
Well, I was.
Yeah.
I was. I was in New Zealand. It was because the first time I went was with you. We had that great time in Dunedin.
That fantastic time in Dunedin, yeah.
Brilliant. And then I rather foolishly kept going back. But and all these disasters, every time I went back, there was some terrible disaster, like there was that awful Christchurch massacre. Mm-hmm. Obviously terrible for the people of Christchurch, but also it just shut everything down. Which I know that I sound a bit self-obsessed. My show. But this time, all the way, since the first mention in the news of this COVID thing, I was thinking, should I go? And I just felt like I was paranoid and hysterical if I was going to cancel. So I went, and within 4 days, everything happened with the phase 2 lockdown. My first festival, no, people were too scared to come, and the second festival in New Zealand cancelled. And at one point, I was trapped with no flights home, and all my Australian bit was cancelled, but not knowing how long I was going to be stuck in the Ibis Hotel next to the airport, because the other thing was I wasn't allowed to see any of my New Zealand friends. You weren't allowed, And people say, oh, how fantastic to be locked down in New Zealand. No, it was it was lockdown.
I know the Ibis Hotel you're talking about, right next to
the airport.
The airport. Yeah, I stayed right there.
that was when my flight was cancelled. I was in there. I would like it to have all been a lot more dramatic, but let's face it, I was there for one night. Because I got rescued by a nice person who knew somebody who had a kind of ranch on the edges of Auckland, and they gave me my own wing for a week. But at that point in the Ibis Hotel, I just thought, I'll be to boarding school. I'm tough, but I thought I cannot spend another day not allowed. I mean, you couldn't stand up straight, because you know those rooms are normally used by backpackers because they've got bunks overhead, because normally you have about 100 people sleeping in them. But yeah, but
I spent a night. Yeah, I spent a night in that hotel, and a night seems like 14 days.
Yeah.
It's incredibly bad luck that you have been scheduled to be in New Zealand the only 2 times that anything has ever happened in New Zealand.
Is that an accusation?
Yeah, it's a country where nothing ever happens.
Terrible thing. I mean, like, terrible things happen. Even I was supposed to put, there was a terrible volcano explosion. It just seemed that New Zealand changed its character of totally innocent, wonderful Charmian land into something a bit more like the real life we're used to living in the UK, you know, when stuff goes wrong on quite a regular basis. Yeah,
but you're back here now, and what are your plans? I mean, are you planning to go out to New Zealand next year?
Strange.
What the fuck can happen next time?
I am doing the show that was cancelled for the Dunedin Fringe. I am doing it in March in Dunedin on the big screen. So I've got to get up. I've got to perform it at 7 o'clock in the morning here, and it's going to be beamed onto their stage.
Brilliant.
So
because they're 13 hours ahead, aren't they?
Yeah. So it's
that's the weird thing. Do you find that when you do these travels that phoning home's difficult?
Yeah, because it's so tempting to think, you know, I want to FaceTime or whatever now. Surely people aren't in bed at 2 in the morning, but they are.
Well, I've done this a few times. I did Perth, which is 8 hours ahead of UK. And Adelaide, which is the bizarre 10.5 hours ahead. And then followed by Dunedin, which was 13 hours ahead. And so what would happen is I'd phone home from Australia, and I'd phone home in the Australian evening, and my wife would just be getting up. And so she'd be stone cold sober, and I'd had a few drinks. And that became the way we carried on with each other until I got to New Zealand when we were 13 hours ahead. And it made more sense for me to phone her in the morning, in the New Zealand morning, when she was going to bed and she was pissed. So I don't think we had a conversation in that entire 6 weeks where both of us were sober.
Brilliant, the best way.
In fact, we've been together for 23 years, and this is the longest time we've ever spent together. And it's probably the most sober conversations we've ever had. But there's not been that many of them. Yeah, so how are you coping with me? Because it's not just that we are not traveling the world. We're just not traveling full stop. I've not been to Glasgow.
Wow. Well, London is, I mean, I know that the rest of the world thinks us Londoners are really evil and not taking it seriously. I think they are taking it quite seriously. We've got more opportunity to get out a bit more because we've got quite a few parks, woods, and I can nip in the car to the seaside for the day. And we did go away for a bit in between lockdown. But the thing that changed our experience was we adopted a middle-aged dog.
All right.
And that kind of, that's made it all really good fun.
Right.
I'm very lucky, Vlad, that when I married my husband, I only married him on the condition that he did a proper job.
Oh,
and kept doing it so that I could, so that when things like this happened, it doesn't really matter that much.
Has he been working from home as well, or has he been
Working from home, and then about 2 weeks ago he took early retirement. He's
Oh,
younger.
right, yeah.
He's younger than me. He's only 56. Yeah, I think so. And he's taken early retirement, so he's been around in the same capacity, but he's doing all this other stuff. Like he's becoming a London tour guide. He's been doing tour guides on Zoom. Anyone wants to see it? It's called The London Spy. And he goes and films the walk before he does it on Zoom. He's been given all this work by corporate. He's got all these corporate gigs to do all these tours. Yeah, amazing. So he's working more than when he was not retired.
Yeah, and thankfully both of us have good grown-up children, so we haven't had to homeschool.
No. Oh, thank God.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, that would have been pretty dire.
Yeah.
But mine are back. Mine are around. I've got my daughter's coming back tomorrow from, she's in Cambridge. She's coming back tomorrow. And my son is around somewhere. He was doing an apprenticeship and the whole thing collapsed because of COVID halfway.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so it's really bad luck for him. So it's like I've got two very large children that not just need things done, but also highly critical.
Yeah, we've got them all back for Christmas, and we're still trying to find that other family who will agree to spend time with us.
That's what my fear was.
Yeah.
Supposing no one wants me in their bubble.
Yeah, I know.
Left out in the cold.
Listen, it's been lovely talking to you. We're going to have to, you're going to be back later. Is there anything you want to plug before? I mean, apart from David's virtual tour of London, which is signed.
No, I'm doing well. I've got my Facebook page, and I'll be putting anything like my New Zealand gig for our New Zealand friends who are watching on there, which is in March, and I'm doing a few Zoom gigs like everyone else. Yeah.
Lovely to speak to you, Charmian.
Lovely, fantastic. Happy Christmas. See you in a minute.
Yeah, and see you in a few minutes. Charmian Hughes, everyone.
Can I just say, someone else has got to get I've got to say, Charmian, we're looking after someone at the moment that I thought you might like to see.
Mine's waving. Oh.
Sorry?
Yeah, puppy.
We look after her on Borrow My Doggy, which is like Tinder for dogs.
I used to do that, yeah.
Brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. If anyone from Borrow My Doggy is watching, then we're looking for sponsorship, so please let us know. Because of course it's free to watch. It is not free to make. If you can please donate, it's not too late to donate. There is the link to donate whatever you can afford. There is a recommended donation of £5 per person, but if you want to give more, we're not going to stop you. Right. We've got some brilliant guests. Our next guest has been a support act for Frankie Boyle, for Jack D, for Lee Evans, for Johnny Vegas, for Steve Coogan. I could go on, but the proof of the pudding is in the tasting. Let's have a little taste of the wonderful Martin.
Let me see who's here, because I think it's always polite to find out who's in the room. So I come from Coleraine, Northern Ireland. Where are all the Irish? Wait, somewhere. Where's the Scottish? Thanks for having us here. Where in Scotland do you come from?
Girvan.
From Girvan.
Yes.
Beautiful Girvan by the sea. What is by the sea? I should know it. How should I know it? Do I know you? You know that woman you fuck when you're drunk and they keep falling? I thought the police told you to fuck off. And is this quite a young person? How old are you? Oh, fuck. It's going to be educational for you, wee man. And who's got you with you? Who's it? Your parents, the parents. Oh, how you doing? How you doing, parents? Good. What's your name, son? Reese. Reese, 18 years old. How's it working out for you? pretty good. Don't make it fucking pretty good, son. Make it brilliant. That's your future. 18 years old. Young Reese is 18. He can remember his first erection. That guy can't remember his last one. Nice to have you, Reese. Nice to have you. Is anybody here from Glasgow? I really know yourself. I really like the Glasgow accent, right? I like Glaswegians, so I like the Glasgow accent. Now, I don't know if you do that, if you know this. At the Fringe, I also do children's shows. It's not the same jokes. It's clearly not the same. Clearly not the same jokes. But there's one thing I do on the shows. I juggle. I do it with that. I juggle, and I throw them to a child. And if the child catches all three of the juggling balls, they win a prize. The prize is a lollipop. Now, I get the win to lick the lolly, and then they go, "This is a delicious lolly," and it's quite cute. You can imagine it's quite cute, wee kids. But this is the. Except with a wee lad from Glasgow. 6 years old. This is a delicious lolly. People were fucking shitting themselves. That's like some sort of loan shark coming to collect.
Oh, fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, let's just give it up for the one, the only, Mr. Martin Moore.
Hello.
Beautiful. Hello, my friend. Hello. Hello. All good, my friend. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. One of the things is I've been doing stand-up now for about 25 years, okay? And I remember before I started doing comedy, I saw you when you were doing Martin Big Pig, yes, at the Red Rose Comedy Club in, I think, 1995 or something, 1996 or something. And when we knew you were on the show, I was like, oh, this is amazing. This is like before me doing comedy. I'm now watching you. I've now got the privilege to interview you, and we've met loads of times in Edinburgh.
Years have not been timed. In those days.
You could do a Rudolph Giuliani, just touch it up a little bit, and then watch it all.
Ginger up a little bit at the sides.
Just for Men are brilliant for that. That really is. But it's always kind of fascinating interviewing heroes of mine. And one of the things I wanted to find out is, like, how did you get into comedy? Because you don't come from a traditional background. Like, how do you get into comedy?
So I was a professional circus performer, and I broke my ankle. I was about to go into Europe on tour in a traditional big top circus show, and my act in those days was juggling on top of a ladder that I was balancing on. I fell off and broke my ankle, and I was living in Manchester at the time, and I was pretty depressed because I'd been working on this act, had a huge tour lined up, broke my ankle, dodging around Manchester on crutches, and I met Dave Gorman, the English comedian Dave Gorman. And Dave and I knew each other from before either of us had done comedy, from like the sort of alternative cabaret. He used to be a poet. Henry Normal was there. He used to be a poet as well. I kind of knew him from that kind of scene. And he said, oh, there's a comedy club has opened up. And while I was on crutches, I went to what is now it was the Frog and Bucket Comedy Club in Manchester. It had opened. It was in a different building than it's in now. And I phoned up to see if I could get a spot. And the manager of the club, a guy called Selwyn, he had seen me before performing with my circus stuff, and he gave me a paid spot. So the first time I was in a comedy club, I was a paid act, and I liked that and started doing comedy then. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. All because of a broken ankle.
Yeah.
Have you still got the broken ankle? Is that why you're still doing comedy?
No. So I still have, interestingly, or maybe not interestingly, all these years later, I still have the effects of that broken ankle in a shoulder injury. I've been treated for a shoulder injury, and amazingly, physio looked at my shoulder injury and examined me and went, at some point, you've broken your other ankle, or you've injured your other ankle. And I said, it's like they'd done a magic trick. It's like they'd done like Aaron Brown or something. And it was my gait had changed, and the movement of my gait, because I do weight training, was affecting now, all these years later, was affecting my shoulder. And weird, huh? All joined together. It's all joined together as part of the same thing, I think might be what it is.
Your ankle bone is connected to your shoulder bone. That's exactly it. The whole song's changed. It really has. But no, it's the other. I mean, the topic, the theme for this week is globetrotting comedians. And you've done a fair chunk of traveling, and I'm always like I've done a bit of traveling. I did America. I did East Coast to West Coast. I've been around Europe and so on and so forth. I've been to Dubai, and what's been the most surprising place that you've ever been to or gigged? What's the most exotic? Go on.
Okay, so I've gigged on all continents except Antarctica, and I actually have plans. I've got something afoot. I have plans afoot to get to Antarctica. So I've toured on all the continents, and what surprised me the most was 2 years ago, I did an Asian tour where I did Singapore, I did Thailand, I did China, and I did Japan. And in between China and Japan, as you do, I decided to go to Mongolia. And I went to do the gig in Mongolia. I didn't really know anything about it. It had been set up by an agent for me. Didn't know much. I didn't know what to expect. I love that. I love when you don't know what to expect. So, and it's called the Ulaanbaatar Comedy Club, and it's called the UB. They call it the UB Comedy Club.
There's a comedy club in Mongolia.
In Mongolia, and honestly, if you lifted that club exactly as it is now and put it in any city in the UK, that would be the best comedy club in the city. It's absolutely unbelievable. And they do comedy 5 nights a week. They do 2 of those nights are in English. Before me, Tom Rhodes had been there, an American fella. I was European to go and do the gig. And then immediately after me, Ranesh Ranganathan came and did his TV show from there. The story is, young guy called Bats, young Mongolian guy, 2014. He is listening to the Joe Rogan podcast and he's interested in comedy. And apparently Joe Rogan says, if you haven't got a local comedy club, set up your own. If you haven't got a new act night, set up your own. So he sets it up and there are no other acts. So for the first 6 weeks, it's in a nightclub. First 6 weeks, there's only him and his parents and his family come and watch. And gradually from this one enthusiastic young guy, the scene has grown. Now it's a purpose-built comedy club. It's absolutely fantastic. Everything is state of the art. Audience all speak English. I did the club gigs and then I did a 1-hour solo show. And in my solo show, there's 180 people. There were 20 that weren't Mongolian. Everybody else was Mongolian. And nearly all were women. Because the women in Mongolia the men go into traditional things like mining and agriculture and stuff. The women go to university, and there's a genuine disparity in in their society, in that the women are really, really highly educated and in all like tech jobs and all independent. So how fantastic! An audience of Mongolians understanding every word. I didn't change any of the set. I barely had to talk any slower than I normally do. Absolutely fantastic. Best comedy club I've ever been to.
Were there Glasgow loan sharks in Mongolia as well?
There weren't. But do you know what? I mentioned things in the show about Ireland, and they got, well, of course, because I know how to adapt the material, but they got absolutely everything, and they knew some things about it. So it's quite lucky that the part of Ireland I come from is in Game of Thrones. So when I say, you might have seen where I come from, it's in Game of Thrones, and they had seen Game of Thrones. And it was really interesting. All the local acts, I did some workshops for the local acts. All the local acts are like American acts, but they're like Black American acts. So they're like, because that's the kind of humor that they've liked and embraced. Absolutely fantastic.
That's amazing. That is, like, as I said, like I've done bits of traveling and stuff like that, and it staggers me. I do get jealous whenever I see comedians jetting off like Vlad and Charmian and yourself going off to Australia. Fuck you. I'm stuck here in England, in St Albans. That's all I have. But no, it's an absolute pleasure. The other thing I wanted to ask, in terms of, the world has gone to shit as we've seen with COVID and now Brexit and all this kind of stuff. How do you think the world circuit is going to look like over the coming years? Is it going to be a resurgence, or is it going to be a decline?
My impression is from the gigs I did when we were in between lockdowns. So where I'm in England now, tier 3 again, so it's all locked down. But I felt that people were very keen to come and support comedy. Something I'm observing now is that the Zoom gigs, people are all over the world are now doing it, and amateur acts. So I like yourself, I teach comedy online. I do Zoom tutorials, and some of my clients are amateur acts that would never do a gig outside their own city. Normal life, they'd never do a gig outside their own city. So they'd be in St Albans, and they'd never they want to do things outside. And now they're doing gigs in America. They're doing gigs to audiences in Australia. So I think what's happened is horizons have been broadened now. And so for me, my horizons have always been broadened, and I've been trying to get to the edge a little bit. I was very influenced by a comedian friend of mine called Nick Wolty. And
I know Nick.
Fantastic comedian. And he did all this kind of traveling where he would be the first guy into a country, or he'd do a gig pre-internet where he just did it all. And now that's got easier and easier and easier. And I think now these newer acts, they're all thinking, when I'm doing my tutorials, brand new acts are going, what's it like to perform in America? What's it like to perform in Australia? How would I do if I went there? And I think horizons have just been broadened, which has got to be good, hasn't that?
Oh, totally. I thoroughly agree. In previous shows we were talking about, like brand new comedians, some of my ex-students who are now doing these kind of online gigs in America and all these kinds of places that it's like normally you would never be able to do it without organizing visas and so on and so forth. I think definitely as bad as lockdown has, I think the circuit's kind of adapted and changed a little bit, and I think it's now no longer a barrier really to kind of go off and do all of these sorts of things.
So I actually think there'll be a thing now of that in recent years, the last few years, there's like a level of comedians that never want to be a pro comedian. They want to do comedy, it's their hobby, they might be really good, they're of a pro standard, but they never want to, they've got something else going on, a proper job or, family, whatever they've got going on. So they never aspire to being a full-time pro comedian. And I think they will exist online from now on. They'll be doing shows in Zoom and stuff. There'll be a whole new community of Zoom comedians, I reckon.
No, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit more about your tutorials, because we were chatting about this, in the green room and stuff. We're talking about, a lot of people think that comedians, we just rock up and just start talking, and that's how it happens, and that's how it works. And it's a nonsense, because I teach comedy just as much as you do. And one of the things that I kind of teach a lot of my students is that there's a discipline to comedy, and you have to approach it in a certain way. So you learn about writing exercises, you learn about connecting with audiences, you learn about editing and performing, and so on and so forth. And I'm always fascinated to chat to somebody else. What's your approach to it? What do you kind of concentrate? What do you kind of teach? And indeed, there's even like a thing that will happen at the bottom of the screen at some point.
I one-to-one, and I've done this for years. And in the past, before Zoom, I only ever did it with professionals, and because that was the only people that could afford to do that kind of thing. But now that it's on Zoom, and I don't have to be in America to teach it, or I don't have to be in Mexico to teach it, I'm doing it from home, it means the price is much more affordable. And I like this, and I've got clients all over the world. And generally what I do is I try to get them to give them as much chance as to be creative in their own individual way. And that's what I think I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get them past any mistakes that they might make. So like, for instance, on its least level, I had a client who was going to go and do an open spot at the Birmingham Glee Club, and I was able to say to them, when you walk on stage at the Birmingham Glee Club, there's a little step. You won't see that step because the lights are in your eyes. So familiarize yourself where it is, because you don't want to fall on a step on your first. You don't want to stumble on your first bit on stage. So something as practical as that, and literally deconstructing all of their material and helping rebuild it from day one. And with that, I've got some clients that have been professional for 40 years and
Wow.
revitalize themselves. And it's fantastic to do that kind of work, take it apart, put it back together again, but in a more relevant way.
It's a very rewarding job. It's a very, very rewarding job. Martin, I would love to keep chatting with you and stick around because we've got some more stuff going on. But yes, I think we should stick around for Dave. Where's Dave? Dave's
Look at this. Lovely chat. Oh my goodness, this is brilliant. I can't compare with that beard, mate. Look at this.
I know, lockdown.
Yeah. This is just because the razors are expensive. Right, what we are going to do is going to bring everyone back in because we've got our lovely guests with us, and we are going to play a little game that we like to call Desert Island Dicks. The idea is, who would you remove from society if you could? We're pitting Martin against Charmian to see who gets out of society. So up first, I think, Charmian, let us know who you would kick for the Desert Island Dick.
Well, I hope it's okay. This person is an archetype rather than an individual. They're coming to our lives in a way they never have before, inflicting their lifestyle on us, making us step aside, and that's the runner. The runner. Now, in the old days, how did people keep fit? We did rugby, we did tennis. The only time you ran was if you were running for a bus or you were running for help. And the runner, they don't stop. They won't stop for a road. They've got a law of their own. If there's a car, if there's a road, a pedestrian, a dog, a beautiful older woman, no! They are dominating the whole of our universe. And if they were on an island, they'd just do their circuits. They'd be happy. It wouldn't be cruel. They'd be happy. It wouldn't be dangerous because they could have their earphones on. They'd have their track. Yeah.
If they really they get drowned. I mean, I think absolutely. What a great shout. I tried running the other day, tried it, hated it, never doing it again. Charmian, what a strong start. Martin, I can imagine you're feeling quite nervous right now. Charmian set the bar really, really high. Who would be on your Desert Island Dicks list?
Okay, so before I do my Desert Island Dicks, I'd like to point out that I really like that Paul slightly looks like a little Scottish desert island with his
I've been fighting this. I must admit, Martin, I'm really disappointed to see you've still got a beard, because if I was you, I've known you for 25 years. You've had that huge beard all that time. If I'd been you and been home for 6 months, or maybe you did, of course you might have shaved it off in March and it's growing again.
No.
I was really hoping. I hope Martin shaved for the first time in 30 years.
The beard is I'm in the witness protection scheme, and this is I have to.
That's what the travel's about.
I would put on the desert island. I would definitely put anti-vaxxers. I would put the anti-vaxxers on the desert island just because inevitably, sooner or later, they would get stung by a stingray or they would get bitten by a snake, and then they would want a vaccine, and it would change them completely. Now, I know that there's going to be people that will comment on this when it goes out live, and people will say, oh, that's not a vaccine if you get stung by a stingray, and it's not a vaccine if you get bitten by a snake. It's an antidote. And to that, I'd like to say, yeah, anti-vaxxer, you fucking like facts now, don't you?
I mean, I don't think we've ever had such a good one. I've got to pass it to our panel of judges. Firstly, Jay, I mean, it's a very strong competition. What are your thoughts?
It's close. Runners and anti-vaxxers. I agree. You know what? Let's just combine the two, chuck them all onto an island. The runners, they can run around, right? And the anti-vaxxers, when they die or get sick or whatever it is, they can just get piggybacked on the back of a runner. And the runner's like, great, I've got extra weight. I can do an ultra marathon. Everyone's happy, as well as the anti-vaxxers going, I'm going nowhere, running around in circles. repeating the stupid argument. I agree.
Runners a vaccine. Give the runners a vaccine, and they can chase the anti-vaxxers. And spreading the gospel of fitness. They can chase the anti-vaxxers with their syringes.
Yeah. I'm for both. It's a dead heat for me. So
I mean, Desert Island Dicks has now become Lord of the Flies. I mean, I don't know what's going on. My final thing, down there, Mr. Vlad, what do you think?
Well, as a runner,
oh.
that's right. No, I totally get that, Charmian. Other runners can piss me off. Runners who run, I've been running for years, and I have never run with headphones on. I think if you run with headphones on, you're a fucking dick. No, seriously. Well, if you need to listen to music to run, then you shouldn't be doing it.
And you deserve to be mugged.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't have to listen to anything else. The whole thing about running is you're out there in the environment, you're taking in the environment, you're listening to the sounds that are going on. The sounds like traffic. That's a sound I like. And when I hear it, I avoid it. If I had headphones on, I wouldn't be able to. No, so I totally get what you're saying, Charmian. I look at some other runners and I think, fucking hell.
So actually, we haven't even chosen. What we've done is we've created a third sector of headphone-wearing anti-vaxxers that are running around the island. Brilliant.
Anyway, if you're asking me for a casting vote on this, Dave, I'd say it's a draw.
I think you are absolutely right. I think that is, look, that's democracy in action, which is also equally how we got Brexit. But let's move on, because we're talking about headphones, wearing other things on your face. It's now time for our final challenge of the show. It's the old favourite. It's Mask Tasker! Yeah. Yes, this is in no way ripped off a Dave TV show that's now moved to Channel 4. It's completely different. What we have asked our guests this week is how many items they can fit in their mask without it falling or dropping off. So how many items can they fit in their mask? Now, Jay, you are in the top left, so I think that means that you are the first to go.
Yep, cool. Now, I've gone a little bit, if you can hear me, I've gone a little bit practical today, because ultimately, as self-employed people, we have to do our taxes soon. It'll be the end of January, we should do it. So I'm planning to take practical things with me. So I've got a calculator, obviously, got to work out my tax, my contact lens case, because contact lenses, my petrol receipts, there you go, that's just one, because it's been locked down, I haven't travelled so much, a pen, all right, and don't try this at home, a letter opener, just so I can do this. So here we go, right? So here we go. So start off with that. There you go. Nice and easy. Petrol receipt. There you go. Pen. Oh, there it is. There you go. Letter opener. All right. Calculator.
Oh, there we go. Being the stationary stealing pirate. I love that. I think that is absolutely incredible there, Jay. I mean, if you'd have really thought about it, you could have also gone for an envelope, put it all in together, whipped it in. But there we go. It's not for me to judge. Next up, we've got Martin.
So I've been enjoying having a mask because I've enjoyed wearing it when I've gone to the supermarket and my neighbours recognise me and say, "Hello, Martin." And I always say, "How did you recognise me?" I thought I was going to go, rather than quantity, I thought I would try to go for quality by jumping and then throwing one.
So, I mean, that is. I feel bad. Look at that.
I might keep wearing it like this. I think that's quite a good look.
I mean, it's not such a great look that you're sexually pleasuring your ball, but that's, you know, that's another thing.
If you had a pet rat, you could have it in a hammock and take it with you on shopping expeditions.
But we'll get all the animal activists on this. The internet's an angry place. Charmian, how many things can you fit in your mask?
Well, I'm going to attempt to use my mask instead of using a handbag on a little expedition, which would involve, you know, maybe having to write my Christmas cards and maybe eat a bit of lunch on the way. So the first thing is my nutritious apple.
Oh, good.
Oh. And then my avocado. My glasses.
You say nearly there. Lastly, but by no means leastly, Vlad, how many things can you put in your mask?
Right, I'm kind of doing this the other way round. I'm over masking, so obviously here's my mask.
Yeah.
Some of you thinking he's not wearing a mask. Yeah, I don't wear a mask. So, here we are. There's a mask. On top of my mask, I will wear a got pipe. I've got a pipe in that. This thing tried on the drawing board. I got another mask. And another mask. And another mask.
Amazing. Vladimir McTavish, the material onion. I love that. I think that is incredible. And you know what? I think this has been the hardest one to judge. I love Martin's. I love Jay's. Charmian's, I think, was very practical. But you know what? This week, I think it has to go to our very own Vladimir McTavish. Because he's not going to be able to say anything because it's going to take him so long to tell you. So the final word of the show goes to our lovely guest, Charmian. What would you like to plug?
I would like to plug my my New Zealand show next year, which will be online if you're in New Zealand at 7:00 in the morning. But if you just keep in touch with my Facebook page, you'll see whatever gigs I've got coming up.
And they will be coming up. So join Charmian's Facebook page. We love that. Martin, final word to you. What would you like to plug?
So I'm doing online one-to-one comedy tutorials. If you look at my Facebook page, the information is on there. And it just occurred to me, if you like the idea of juggling, look on YouTube. Funny Happy Stuff. Funny Happy Stuff is my family-friendly shows channel, and I've been putting up tutorials. So there's juggling from learning to juggle all the way through 4 balls, loads of tricks and videos every week on Funny Happy Stuff.
Wow, that's brilliant. I think Boris Johnson needs a lesson in juggling, but that is all we have time for. Don't forget to join us next week. It's not too late to donate. You can go online and donate to keep this show running. Guys, it has been an absolute pleasure. Massive round of applause goes to the wonderful Charmian Hughes, James Sodagar, and our brilliant Vladimir McTavish. I've been Dave Chawner. We will see you next week. Thank you very much. Please donate and goodbye.